Welcome back to the channel. I know it's been a couple weeks since I put up a video on. Had a death in the family that we had to take care of and just kind of been in a weird headspace. But want to get back to creating more content here. What that looks like, I have no idea. I know I've been going on these anti-AI rants for quite a bit, but I think it's good to discuss about some of the AI and how it's impacting artists and creatives across all the spaces. I have a couple Google alerts around AI and generative AI just to see what's going on in that space, as I'm very interested in it and just how it's going to impact everybody as humans, and kind of what are the mindset behind some of these AI creators. Because I don't know, it's kind of a weird space. There's a couple of communities I joined when I was experimenting with Suno back in November. One of them I left, which was the Suno Discord, which I don't know, wasn't really great. It was more just people talking about how to make better prompts. Nothing too far out that I came across. I don't know. Some of the people who make AI music and feel as the music they create is very good, or even the videos that go along for it. I don't know. It interests me for some reason, and it's kind of sad and funny at the same time. I want to do a video on it at some point in the future. I'm just trying to figure out how to present it. And I don't know, I don't want to talk down to people who use AI. There's many reasons people decide to use AI. It's one of those things where I don't think if you're going to use it for yourself, great, whatever. I don't care. But it's when you start just populating all our social medias with this terrible AI stuff where it becomes a problem. And it's only getting worse and worse every day. More and more AI videos are showing up in the numerous YouTube spaces that I follow. I have different YouTube accounts for different genres, whether it's music, movies, general productivity stuff. I have a separate channel for all that because the YouTube algorithm is very adept at giving you everything in one place. And so I like to just break that up. That way I have more of a cleaner content feed in all of them, regardless of what kind of space I'm in. There's an inundation of AI content coming there, or content creators talking about AI and how it's proliferating across the ecosystems, I guess. When it comes to music, I did see, Spotify had their quarterly earnings or yearly earnings for 25 that just came out this week. There was an article from Billboard talking about it. So read through the article, but then I went and found their earnings PDF because I'm a nerd. I read through it. There's a few things I wanted to kind of discuss and just kind of get out there in people's heads that maybe don't pay attention to this stuff. Maybe my video will come across and they'll watch it. I think some of the big things around Spotify's future is they're very heavy AI enthusiasts. They really want to push it into everything. Going from here, there's no question in mind that we will continue to be one of the big beneficiaries of AI. That was from Gustav Soderstrom, co-chief executive officer. I think he is getting promoted to be a co-CEO, along with one of the other guys, as the Inc. guy is stepping down. Alex Nordstrom, yeah, he's the other one. So Alex and Gustav will be taking over the helm from Daniel Ek. So Daniel Ek stepping down. This was his last contribution as CEO regards to remarks on these quarterly reviews. And this is something that like every company does. So if you're a publicly traded company, this is all stuff that has to be public knowledge. Don't quote me on that because I'm not a lawyer, but this has to be out there. You can go to most websites for any major companies and find this kind of information. There's also information on exactly what their quarterly ups and downs are for all their subscriber numbers and things like that are kind of interesting to look through. I guess one thing to think about Spotify is that they're not a music company. They're not there to provide you music. They see themselves as a technology company, basically see themselves as a R&D arm for the music industry. And they've been doing that for about 20 years. They want to build their capabilities and have them expand beyond music, as they say right here. And today what they build is technology platform for audio, and increasingly for all the ways creators connect with audiences. As we all know, Spotify has moved away from just audio. It started with music. They have podcasts on there. They have audio books. And I believe they started adding actual books, maybe? I don't know. I saw something when I was looking at the website about reading the book and the audio and kind of jumping between them. But there were some interesting things they said in this call around AI. There was some talk about podcasting. I don't use Spotify for podcasting. I still use Spotify, unfortunately, because I'm on the family plan and I cannot get my wife and kid to want to change, which is something I need to work on because I don't like supporting Spotify because I think they're a terrible company. Also, trying to find anything on there is kind of a train wreck these days. Every time I open that app, kind of a mess. I've jumped around using it over the last year year or so. I've tried Tidal for a while. Tidal was great. I tried Apple Music is great. Plus Spotify has the way they do the revenue model is very not in favor of artists, especially small artists, because you won't get payouts unless you hit certain criterias. And then that pool of money ends up going to the big winners on the platform. So like the Taylor Swifts, the Kendrick Lamars, these are the people that are going to get more of the money because they are the ones who have like the highest streams, and they're the ones who bring a lot of people to the platform. So if you're a smaller musician putting your music out on the platform, unless you hit a certain mark, you're not going to get any payouts, no matter if people are listening to your music. You can have one or two diehard fans who listen to you over and over, but if you don't hit the streaming marks for the year, then you're not going to get anything from that. In podcasting, they have a video podcast consumption on Spotify has increased by more than 90%. I use Apple Podcasts for podcasts because I like to separate my music and podcasts. I find it weird that, I guess people like everything in one app. The fact that there's 530 video podcasts is crazy to me. And I know Netflix is also getting in that game. I've seen the podcast feed on Netflix as well, which is, I don't know, it's a podcast. You listen to it. Why? I don't know why you need to. I guess there could be some instances where you need to see it. And this is where the system's going to get diluted for musicians, is that when you start adding all these other things, audiobooks, podcasts, been adding video on there as well. That pool of money is going to get smaller and smaller as it has to hit all these different demographics, which is sad to say. Spotify is about creating value for their users, because when people spend more days in a month with us across more moments, devices, and verticals, it proves our product is working. It means our investments into personalization and AR are paying off. It means we are doing a great job sharing the art made by our artists, podcasters, and authors. What this ultimately translates into is greater engagement and retention, which unlocks more revenue growth. As our revenue grows, we bring more value back to our partners, artists, and creators. And with scale comes more opportunity for innovation and margin expansion. They really care about just getting more people on the platform. And that's basically every social media. Every social media just wants you to stay on there. They don't want you to leave. And that's why you see every social media trying to be every social media. You can't just have one thing do one thing. And as they proliferate more and more of this different content areas, I think there's a big concerning matter around their AI usage. They use it with their DJ. They have the interactive DJ. I haven't really tried that. As someone who's been learning how to DJ the last year or so, I've been using different services. I was using Tidal for a long time because you can actually use temp separation on there, but unfortunately lost my job earlier or late last year, so had to cancel that subscription. Spotify, you can now put that into your DJ software, and so I'm sure there's some kind of AI behind the scenes seeing how DJs are mixing songs when they're using Spotify as their integrated audio platform, and then training their iDJ to mimic what humans are doing within mixes. So that's kind of concerning. They also added prompt playlists, which is, deep research mode on Spotify. That might be a good use for AI. There's some good uses for AI that's not really in the creative space. I don't really have issues with. I think AI can be used in certain spaces, but when it comes to like truly creating something, I don't think it's very good at that. It's just mimicking on what it's learned on. But I think in the instance of like a prompt playlist, it says, hey, look at my history of the types of synthwave I've listened to and provide that to me. I think that could be a good thing, but in regards to Spotify, it's probably going to be a terrible thing. At some point, Spotify is just going to generate their own AI music, put it on the platform, and just bypass any human creators. And that is the biggest thing with all these AI creators, or whatever the hell you want to call them, prompters, is that they're kind of setting themselves up to failure, plus actual musicians and artists for failure, because you're just going to distribute all this music on the platform and it's going to be inundated with everything. But then you have to think that AI, the entire goal for most of these companies in regards to AI, is to have control over the means of production and making sure that, hey, if we get rid of the creators out of any of these places, whether it's the writing, the visual arts, the audio arts, even with the gaming arts and that new Google game platform they announced that generates games. Once you start getting rid of the people who are the ones who created these, the ones that all the AI is trained on, they don't need you in the future. They can just have a small team who will generate all this stuff. You can have a team of 20 people that work for the company, just generating tons of music, publishing that platforms. and then populate playlists with all this artificial music. It's not an age thing. And I think that's some of the concerns I see sometimes people talk about is that the age that, oh no, it's the older people who hate AI. My son is 16. He does not like AI. He sees what it's doing to people in school. He sees that they over rely on it in a lot of the stuff in high school. And him and his friends are also the same way. And there might be this, people in their 20s and maybe early 30s who are fine with it. But I think the more and more we integrate AI into our lives, the more and more we lose our ability to think critically about what we're seeing, what we're reading. Even though I pay attention a lot to the AI space, there's a lot of content I've seen that kind of tricked me for a second. And it wasn't until like a second or third look that I realized that it was AI, which is just depressing with sometimes how it's used. A lot of it can be, sometimes it's a funny thing. And then you realize, wait, there's something weird about that video. You'll look at it again and you see it's AI. When it comes to, companies like Spotify, any big corporation who is heavily invested in AI, their entire goal is to basically get rid of humans. They just want to have the AI create everything so they don't have to pay people. And that's like the end goal. And I don't understand why there's so many people who are pro AI in that context. There's a talk in here is this is the one thing that caught me off, and this is where I'm going on this little tangent about what their end game is. We see two distinct categories emerging. One, artists making original music from scratch, and two, new versions of existing music, like covers or remixes. The first category means a lot of net new music and more content than ever being delivered to Spotify. Importantly, a growing catalog has always been very good for us because it attracts new users, drives engagement, and builds fandoms. But while the music may be generated on various AI platforms, the point is that regardless of where the music is made, the cultural moment always happens on Spotify. That is where all music charts finds an audience. This is because Spotify has long been the place that delivers both the largest reach and monetization opportunities. The one thing that I caught here is like we see two distinct categories is, artists making original music from scratch, but then they come about, people generating this AI music. This is not a true artist. This is not what they're talking about, I'm pretty sure. Artists creating original work. This is anybody who has access to tools like Suno, Udio, or any other platforms that allow you to generate any kind of music with generative AI can upload it is what they see. And they have more and more of that onto the platform is what their goal is. Because those tools that are used to generate this music that has been trained on stolen material can't be copyrighted at the moment, or it's still in law. Don't trust me, I'm not a lawyer. I don't know what the actual law is, but I do know the way the copyright is. It's, you can't copyright that stuff at the moment. There's this discussion around, artists wanting people to create covers and remixes. I think that could be the case. And that's kind of where like a lot of DJ culture is from, is like remixing popular songs into different styles using the vocals and such. But in regards to what Spotify wants is just anybody to take anybody's song and remix it into whatever style they want, which takes no effort whatsoever. And I think that's the big difference is there's no effort in it. It's just you put a prompt in and say, hey, I want, Lady Gaga's song in the style of, hip hop or something like that. And it'll do it. But is that the original intent of what the artists wanted for their song? And they also say that there's a lot of buy-in from artists and record. I'm sure there's a lot of buy-in from record executives because they can bypass the artist on a lot of this music as it becomes derivative work. And then do artists truly want that? Like, I think artists don't mind people when they do like a remix and actually put some work into it, take like vocal samples and then put that into, Ableton, remix a song around it, make it a dance track, maybe use some of the MIDI from the song. That stuff takes some like artistic talent and work. Whereas if you just take a song and you put that into Suno and cover it, that's nothing. That's nothing. That's just an algorithm trained on stolen work to create that. And then they're talking about the second category is derivative, new takes on existing music. Everything we see tells us listeners want to interact with their favorite music, and many artists want to let them. Creating new revenue from their existing catalog and other media like movies and TV. Existing IP is incredibly valuable, but music artists haven't had a real way to monetize existing catalogs through AI because the absence of a rights framework has kept AI mostly focused on net new creation. We want to work with the industry to fix that. Yeah, so that goes back to them wanting to be able to let anybody cover, remix your songs, and you're supposedly going to get paid out on that. I'm not sure how true that is. And so my point is AI is bad. We shouldn't use it. And Spotify is a terrible company who does terrible things. and supports terrible technologies with their CEO. And I think overall it's just kind of bad for music. Unfortunately, I still use it. We'll try and change that. So when you're out there looking at music, just you gotta have to investigate it more. Unfortunately, we're in a time where not everything is easily noticeable that it's AI right away. There are some subtle signs here. If you listen to enough of it, you can hear it. And there's a lot of bad stuff out there, and there's a lot of stuff that kind of passes for real music. Even though once people realize that they're listening to AI, they feel like they're duped because they are. It's a facade. It's not real music. It's just the algorithm generating it. And I know some of the arguments out there are, well, humans do the same thing. I was like, yeah, we do the same thing, but we use our human mind to do it, and we're not trained on entire history of human creation. We're mostly influenced by the artists we listen to and the music that we love and grew up listening to. Maybe that influences us. And subconsciously, it's not like we're all trying to mimic and create exactly something that we've heard before. Yeah, there's probably some bad actors out there who do that. But I think a majority of musicians, if they come up something that sounds similar to something else, it's because it's like a subconscious thing. There could be some arguments from the AI community that, oh, that's how the AI does it. It's trained on all this music and it generates this audio. It just happens to sound like another artist. So I guess what I'm saying is be a little bit more critical about the music, the visuals you see out there. Unfortunately, we have to investigate more of the artists we listen to, especially the new artists that we come across, because at first glance, you might not know they're AI until you dive deeper, but there's a couple telltale signs you can look out for. Quantity of releases. I think anybody who's releasing their own music who creates it should also not be using AI visuals, but that's also a thing that's out there. So I try not to support those artists who are using AI generated visuals, which can also be sometimes hard to tell around if it's a AI visual or if it was CG. Hope that was informative. My rant was a little long. I hope you have a good rest of the day.